In this video, Alan goes through some key tips and tricks for the integrated Petrel StructureSolver workflow.
We will review here the main features of the StructureSolver plugin for Petrel and discuss best practices and guidelines for efficiently incorporating structural analysis into your Petrel interpretation workflow. With the StructureSolver Petrel plugin, we can export from any of these entities. I've shown you exporting from a 2D line, but we can export directly from an inline, a crossline, a random line, or a general intersection. We don't generally recommend that you export directly from a random line, because if you then move the random line, the position of the random line in Petrel, then the geometrical correspondence between StructureSolver and Petrel will be lost. So we recommend in that case to go from a random line to a converted 2D line and work in that way. Composite lines are sort of interesting because quite often you can create a composite line in Petrel that contains both 2D and 3D elements. The Petrel Ocean interface does not actually expose the trace locations of composite lines to external plugins. So the way you deal with composite lines is to convert them to 2D lines and then export the converted 2D line. And when you do that, you can choose to move the interpretation backwards and forwards from the converted 2D line or to the original 3D and 2D components, or both of those together. So we explain all of that in the help manual, the various options that you've got available there. So I sort of showed how once you export from Petrel, you can actually perform a variety of analysis very quickly in StructureSolver. What we recommend as a workflow when you're starting out with a new 3D cube is, rather than jumping right in and doing a very close interpretation with auto picking and so on and close fault interpretation, you perform a sparse reconnaissance interpretation of faults and horizons of Petrel. Then you export suitable hero lines to StructureSolver. A hero line is a key line that shows sort of characteristic parts of the structural development. So you might have, anywhere between 5 and 20 of those lines across the 3D cube. Then going through those lines, you perform a full range of interactive structural analysis as appropriate. And in that analysis, you start to get the shapes, the displacement histories, and linkages of major faults. You better define horizon geometries. You can see the correlations. You can use the restoration tools as an aid to interpretation. You can use area depth and modeling to understand subseismic kinematic strain, and you can look at the structural and stratigraphic history and development. At any point during this process, you can update Petrel with the modified augmented horizon fault and multi-Z interpretations. Then once you've done that, you can complete closely spaced Petrel interpretation, then move on to mapping and Petrel structural modeling with confidence and no need to rework. So obviously this whole sort of workflow works well for exploration, but it also can be replicated on a finer scale during field development. So just finally, I'll just show some of the help components. Under export and import here, we've got help for Petrel plugin. We can see the help comes up here. And you have a variety of pages here that are quite detailed, that explain the processes, how the correspondence take place, the process of export in detail, showing how you can export from an interpretation window, a 3D window, etc., and explains some of the complications associated with exporting a composite line. And also how to open existing StructureSolver windows, what you do in those, and then the updates in both directions and the Petrel seismic line info. So we hope all of this is pretty explanatory. So far, people are finding this workflow pretty simple. Thank you for your attention and appreciate you taking the interest in the StructureSolver Petrel plugin.
Don't forget to check out our Learning Center for lots of great resources on how to use StructureSolver, as well as the frequently updated help documentation.